I gotta be blunt here. Fortnite has a really big problem, and I really think they need to reconsider some of their choices and that they need to fix this extremely quickly. So, I'm not even going to waste any time when I get into this, and I'm going to have all the explanations in the world on as to why I think this. Fortnite seems to be taking on a one chapter a year approach. We saw this starting with Chapter 3, where it ended in Chapter 3 Season 4 with the Chrome season. Personally, I love that season a lot, but I know that a lot of people didn't. I have a video coming out about that possibly sometime in the future. It's an idea that I've had, but I wouldn't expect it anytime soon. Regardless, they seemed to be going in a one chapter per year approach. Now, initially, the idea seemed kind of cool on paper. You give people a new map every year so that way the game feels fresh and reinvigorating once a year. I understand that it kind of draws hype and it brings a lot of people back to the game that might not have been playing the game in the past, but my god, is this just a really bad idea for longevity? If you want to bring people into your game, you make your game interesting and unique. You add in unique updates. You make the game presentable to so many people. It doesn't matter when someone starts, as long as you're advertising it and there's a lot of people getting exposed to your game, then your game is going to get played and people are going to be interested. Think about the Dragon Ball update. So many people joined the game during Chapter 3, Season 3 just for Dragon Ball. Or think about when you added in Spider-Man for the first time. So many people joined your game. It doesn't have to be a new chapter or a new Season 1 or a new map or anything of that sort. Plus, it's just going to continue to get old with how Epic Games continues to just blow up their maps, and it really feels like they're just not getting creative enough with it. It just feels like they have to bring in the last reality every goddamn time just to blow up an island. Now, I could rant about the lore all the time, but no, we're going to be going in on purely from a gameplay perspective, from a health perspective, and from a game longevity perspective. Battle Royale is still currently my favorite mode in Fortnite. I feel like a lot of people kind of understand that fact. However, creative has been kind of something I've been doing as well. I have been working on a pretty big map. It's not coming out for at least a year, but I can tell you for a fact that I have been working on something that's pretty freaking cool, and I think that y'all guys are gonna love. But in terms of playing creative, I just don't really have as much of a drive to actually play creative games, because there's already a well-developed game in Fortnite Battle Royale, and I feel like that's just kind of something I would rather stick with than, play a death run or some shoddily made creative map, especially now that creating maps and publishing them is open to anyone over the age of 18 and you don't need to support a creator code for it anymore. I almost just want to say that it's just going to be a lot more fodder, and it kind of shows with the discovery tab, but that's also not the big issue. It's the one chapter a year thing where we're talking about BR here. I think this is arguably the worst decision Epic Games has ever made for Battle Royale in a long time. Now, admittedly, Chapter 2 Season 1 was a pretty L season. I get that. That was kind of a bad decision of a season to make, but they kind of remedied it by the end, and I feel like the game has been substantially better ever since. Chapter 2 was just not my thing. I'm sorry. But in terms of, health for the game, when you're doing one chapter a year, you're setting a lot of expectations on yourself. Whenever there's a new Fortnite chapter, there's a lot of expectations going into it. With Chapter 2, you introduced swimming and fishing and new graphics and all that. The game felt fresh. With Chapter 3, you introduced sliding and you introduced the mantling and the sprinting and all that, and it fundamentally made the game play better. You also introduced Zero Build, which was huge. With Chapter 4, we haven't really seen anything like that. We didn't have the hurdle for a little bit, but it does appear as though they're just not bringing that back to BR anytime soon. And we have been getting first person leaked to us over and over and over. However, we've also gotten several other leaks that suggest that Chapter 4 will also only last around a year. Even less so, as it appears to be ending sometime in November instead of December. Why? Why is this a thing? This basically tells me that Season 3 is going to be short, and then Season 4 will also be pretty short, with Season 1 being the longest season of them all. I'm honestly not a fan of this. When you have one season a year, it doesn't give the player base enough time to really ingest the map and then digest it. It doesn't give them time to form a relationship or a bond with the map or I should say island, and really get to see it evolve. No, the island just doesn't feel like it grows all that much. It feels like they just kind of change things to change them. I love Chapter 3, but if I were to say that they changed things with meaning behind them, then I would be lying. I hated Chapter 2, but at least it got a chance to grow. At least it had the chance. Doesn't mean it did, but, you know, the chance was there. If Chapter 3 was given another year to evolve and grow, I'm sure people would be looking back on it completely differently. And the same thing is going to happen with the Chapter 4 map. The Chapter 4 map is just going to be forgotten. It's just going to be looked back upon as, oh yeah, we were there for a little while, and then we kind of just left. The Chapter 4 map, graphically, is arguably one of the best maps we've ever had. Visually, it's pleasing to look at. Running around on it is a little bit of a mixed bag for me personally. I'm not the biggest fan of the layout of the Chapter 4 map, but I feel as though this also just comes down to preference. My last favorite map was the Chapter 3 map and the Chapter 1 map, but we're not going to get into that, especially not the Chapter 1 map. I have a whole video about that planned. God, you guys are not ready for the amount of videos that I have planned. Oh my god, I might be making a comeback. Anyways, I really just feel like this map especially should be given 2 years. Like, look, with Chapter 3, I get it. You had the desert, you had the snow, and you had your jungle, and you had your plains biome. I totally get that. It felt like an upgraded version of the Chapter 1 map to me, and I was absolutely down for that. So, I guess I can kind of see why that only lasted a year. It was similar to a previous map, and at the end of the day, I feel as though Epic Games kind of just didn't know what they were doing with the map at the end of the chapter. Again, I loved 3 out of the 4 seasons in this chapter. I will still say that Season 2 is the worst season in that chapter, and Fiben is just mid. It's a little overhated, but it's not the best season in the world either. I feel like it's just looked down upon because it was a very long period of time, and honestly, was it even that long? It might have just felt long because Epic Games went on a really long break. I don't know. I'm not going to talk about it right now. What I am going to talk about is how Chapter 4 just feels underwhelming to me. I understand that they updated the graphics, and I understand that, like, you know, we're only 2 seasons in, but it's going to feel underwhelming at the end. Why? Because we only have 4 seasons before we go into Chapter 5. Now, I do want to talk about the source a little bit, because the source that we've gotten is a little unreliable. From what I can tell, from what a friend had shown me, a lot of the things that they said in the past never actually happened. However, there's a few things that did happen, namely the Chapter 2 end leak, I guess, and as well as a couple of other like skin leaks and cosmetic leaks. And they are currently saying that we are going to be seeing Miles Morales come to the game with the next update, and the Spider-Man web shooters will be returning. This is exciting, and I am happy if this does happen, but if it doesn't happen, then I feel like this leak could be considered a dud, but they said them both in the same thing, so we're just gonna have to see. So where do I stand on this? Obviously, you guys know that I don't like the idea of 1-year chapters at all. I absolutely fucking hate it. It's the worst thing I feel like Epic Games could ever do for the game, because not only does it crunch developer time, but it also just leaves the player base generally unhappy. They're not going to have any time to develop a bond with the islands or the chapter, and in general, they're just going to feel like a blur. There's just not going to be anything interesting going on in either chapter or any future chapters just because of how short they are. The Chapter 4 map could absolutely exist for like 8 to 10 seasons. I wish it would extend to 10, but at the rate that they're going at, it just seems as though they're going to be going with a lot like less. I understand quality over quantity. I get that that's an approach, but that's no excuse to make a map disappear after a year. At this point, I feel like Battle Royale would benefit from a map rotation. I feel like you could develop a new map every 4 seasons and keep the old one into a rotation. I've been playing, well, no, I haven't been, but I played a little bit of Apex, and I like how they do their maps. I like how every hour it rotates. I absolutely love that. You can have it be every other day or every week or something like that, but at least have a rotation, right? Like, I just don't understand. I feel like Epic Games doesn't know what they're doing, and they're basing everything off of Chapter 3, and Chapter 3 was not taken very well. So why would they repeat the same thing that so many people didn't like? Sure, I like Chapter 3 because the map and the gameplay was fun, but I will admit that it is a little bit of a blur just purely because of how little time we had there, and I just don't want Chapter 4 to suffer the same fate. Yeah, Chapter 4 hasn't been my favorite chapter by a long shot, but the seasons haven't been horrendous. Season 1, admittedly, was weaker than the current season we're in, and I feel like the season we're in right now is really good. But I just kind of feel like if they go with this 4 seasons a chapter thing, then the game's just gonna fall. I really feel like the game is just gonna fall. No, I don't think it's gonna die by any means, but the interest in Battle Royale is just gonna start leaning away, and nobody's really gonna have an interest in it. You're gonna end up having to remove mechanics and keep mechanics and whatnot. I wouldn't be surprised if we went into Chapter 5 and they removed augments. I love augments, but I just would not be surprised if they removed those. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. I know that it's kind of an interesting topic to talk about, with it only being like 1 chapter a year. I fucking hate it. Like, again, I could just be thinking of things from a different perspective here, but based off of all the hate that Chapter 3 gets, I feel like it's going to be a similar situation with Chapter 4, in which, you know, just everyone's just going to dogpile it by the end of it. Nobody's going to want to be playing on it anymore. And all of that, just because of how many changes you made in such a short amount of time, and how short that time really is. Give this chapter a year to breathe. Give it time. Let it develop. It'll not only make your storyline better, but your devs will feel less pressured to get things done by a specific deadline. The game isn't gonna suffer, you know? Anyways, that's just me. Let me know what you think about the topic. Let me know if you like the whole 1 chapter a year thing. I don't know why you would, but, you know, we all have our reasons. And, of course, let me know what you thought about the video. By the way, I have something to announce. The podcast is returning. It'll be here every Monday. We're rebranding it to Mothical Mondays, and we will have guests almost weekly. It's going to be exciting, and I'm hoping that you're looking forward to it, because it's going to be really good. That's all for today's video. Have a nice day, and get the hell out of here.